Hello, my name is Allison Carmen, and welcome to my podcast, 10 Minutes to Less Suffering. And the name of today's podcast is You Might Have to Accept It, but You Don't Have to Normalize It. When I say normalize, I'm talking about those moments when we're asked, either by others or by ourselves, to pretend something is okay when it really isn't. Maybe we downplay a painful experience, minimize our emotions, or go along with something just to keep the peace even though it doesn't sit right in our soul. And I want to be really clear, normalization has nothing to do with acceptance, because we all know we can't control everything that happens in our lives. Sometimes things fall apart, people leave, circumstances change, and when we resist reality, we suffer. But pretending something is okay, that's different. That's erasing ourselves. We can accept reality and still say, this isn't right for me. This doesn't align. This isn't okay in my world. And this topic has been on my heart since I returned from one of the most emotional and meaningful weekends of my life, my younger daughter's college graduation. I was beyond proud. My older daughter came, my cousin joined us, and yes, my ex-husband was there too. And if you've been listening to this podcast, you know my story. Over 6 years ago, after 27 years of marriage, my husband left me suddenly. No explanation, no honest conversation, no real closure. One day he told me he wanted to date other women. We barely tried counseling. There was no slow unraveling, just a break. He moved on quickly, married someone else, and they had a child last year. So standing at my daughter's graduation with all of us in the same space, it was emotional for me. I kept thinking this might be my reality, but it's not normal, not for me. And we live in a world that often tells us to pretend everything is fine, pretend nothing happened, pretend you're over it even when you're not. But here's the truth I've come to live by. We can accept what is and still refuse to normalize it. We can say this happened, this is real, and still say this doesn't feel okay. This doesn't reflect who I am or what I deserve. And let me be clear, I wasn't rude, I wasn't bitter, I was kind and respectful. I moved aside for pictures, I offered to take some. I honored the moment for my daughters. But I didn't sit next to him, I didn't share meals, I didn't pretend that nothing had changed. And if my daughters had asked me to sit with him, I would have. I would do anything for them, but they didn't. So I made the choice that honored my journey, my peace. Because the truth is, I've done so much of the parenting alone these past 6 years. Every hard night, every crisis, every decision, I've shown up. And on that day, I wanted to feel proud. I wanted to feel free. I didn't want to sit beside someone who caused me deep pain, just so it would look normal to someone else. Now, maybe your situation isn't exactly like mine, but I know you've had moments like this. A moment where you're expected to sit at the table with someone who hurt you, to keep quiet at work when something felt deeply wrong, to smile through discomfort in a relationship or friendship where your boundaries are being ignored. And yes, sometimes we stay silent, sometimes we keep the peace, sometimes we accept something, even if there'll be a time later on that we will confront it. But even those moments, we don't have to normalize it. We don't have to tell ourselves it's okay when it isn't. Because the moment we do that, we abandon ourselves. And the world gets louder in telling us who to be, and we get quieter in knowing who we are. So how do we stay anchored in truth when life asks us to accept what's happening in front of us? The first thing is you have to name what's true for you. This is the foundation of everything. We cannot be authentic with others if we are not honest with ourselves. We can ask ourselves, what are we feeling? What do we need right now? For me, the truth was sitting next to my ex would take away from my joy. I didn't need to shame that feeling. I didn't need to justify it. I just needed to honor it. Number 2, set boundaries that protect our peace. Boundaries are not walls. They're clarity. They're how we say this is what I need to feel safe, to feel whole, to show up fully. And it's so important that we keep our hearts open, because when we start to do this work, if we close our hearts, it is a wall. It's a wall that separates us from other people. And that's not good either. Having boundaries of what's okay for us and what's not, but still going into the world and exploring and being open and having relationships and speaking our mind and listening to others. It's knowing who we are, but also going out and getting to know others and getting to know the world. The third thing to consider is letting go of what other people think. People try to normalize things, keeping status quo, it's keeping certainty, it's perhaps how they live their lives. And it's easier for everybody around you if you just go along. But what they think is not how you feel. And what they think is not where your authenticity lies. And you will meet people that align and you will meet people that don't. But at the end of the day, when you tap into you, when you tap into what you need, that is when you find your way. And the fourth one is quite important, and it's make space for nuance. As much as we want certainty in our lives, life is not black and white. You could be healed and still feel the sting of the past. You could be kind and not want to be close. You can forgive and still choose space. That's not contradiction, that's wholeness. And a lot of that is what happened to me. I was not being spiteful. I wasn't withholding. I was just trying to see what I needed to experience the greatest level of joy that day to honor the journey of my daughter and her graduation. And I hope you can have that nuance in your own life. I think it was Marianne Williamson who said you could forgive someone, but it doesn't mean you have to have dinner plans. So yes, we accept what is, and we learn to live with what we cannot change, but we don't have to call it normal. We don't have to merge with it. We don't have to carry it like it belongs to us when it doesn't. And again, it's not about bitterness. It is about alignment. It's about remembering who we are and staying true to that. Because when you do, life opens. The past no longer weighs you down. The people who hurt you no longer define you. And you stop waiting for permission to actually be yourself. And you get to keep your heart open and seek what's actually seeking you. And when you do this, you live on the infinite field of all possibilities without your fear, without being diminished, without feeling ashamed, and know your divine right to be here, and know your divine path, and know that it's all possible because you feel who you are, you elevate who you are, you love who you are. You're willing to expand for new opportunities, expand to meet more people, because you're not worried about pain, you're not worried about hurt. You're more concerned about being connected to your truth, and you know that in the flow of life, you will find your way, that nothing holds you back. And one of the most important things is to not allow the world to tell you who you are, to not allow the world to tell you what is normal. That is the problem that many of us are having today. You don't need to look around and say, just because everyone's doing this, it's normal. Just because the world is the way it is doesn't mean it's normal. What do I think? What do I feel? And how do I create the world that I want to see? And that only happens through authenticity and truth and what you believe in, what matters to you, what is meaningful to you. That is what it is all about. We don't have to become less than to make everyone else feel comfortable. We don't have to compromise and diminish ourselves because everybody in the world wants to make it easier. Because easy is not the path to enlightenment. Authenticity is, love is, an open heart is, and you can do this. And we do this when we love ourselves enough to know who we are and to believe that uncertainty is our best friend and to always know that maybe the best is yet to come. Thank you for listening to this podcast today. If you'd like to get in touch with me, you could email me at allison@allisoncarmen.com. If you'd like to buy my books, The Gift of Maybe, A Year Without Men, Maybe Everything's Okay, A Parent's Guide to Less Stress and Worry, they're available in all major bookstores and online retailers. If you'd like to buy my Maybe cards or my Maybe digital journal, they're available on Amazon, Etsy, and my Stand store. And most of all, if you like this podcast, I hope you subscribe and leave a comment.